Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode of All the Mod 6. I hope everyone is doing great today. I know that I am as always. We're jumping right back into our game save here, and we have streamed a little bit since our last recording. So I'm going to run you through some things today, and actually because of the stream that we had, I am changing the course of what we are looking into today. I know that I've been talking on getting back into bees, getting into cooking for blockheads, which is still on our docket to get done, but something that we started on the stream really made me want to put out an episode around it, and I'll explain that in just a little bit here. But first, as you can see, we're standing over by our farm here, and we have switched out some of our crops, so I wanted to show you guys that first. We're still producing wheat as usual, but now we have a bunch of emerald seeds from Mystical Agriculture over here. And we also got up and going a couple of nether quartz seeds as well. That was mainly done on the stream. But we put them up over here because the nether quartz plays a huge role in refined storage. And one of our ultimate goals to get to would be to have higher storage capacity. And you guys know that, who have been sticking along with the series for quite some time now, is that was one of the big goals that we had, is to get like infinite storage up and going, because it would be really cool to have it like that. And in order to get to that point, well, it's going to take a lot. And I'll show you guys here real quick for those of you who are new, who maybe didn't know about this before. But if we were to do it, we need, well, for one, a lot of slime. We're going to need a lot of gold. We're going to need a lot of diamonds, but mostly the biggest amount of what we're going to need is the quartz. We're going to need over 1 million quartz to get this done. Everything else is pretty easy to get up and going. You know, we have sandstone here, which would eventually make sand and so on and so forth. Redstone, not too bad. Diamonds, we could get going as well. I mean, you do need a lot of them, don't get me wrong, but nothing compared to that 1 million quartz. So I'm just getting the ball rolling on that to kind of just have it passively craft up for us. The other thing that we got going on is right over here is our slime. We're going to need a decent amount of slime for this as well. And we actually ran into a problem where we ran out of slime on the stream. So what we went ahead and did is we came down to our mob farm, because if you guys recall, this mob farm down here, we were putting cows through it. Originally we had, I think, wither skeletons. We switched over to pigs, and then we had cows. If we look at our inventory, we have so much beef, like so much raw beef, that there's really no need for us to have this in here. Now, in terms of pigs, we don't really have many pigs. Oh, there's a zombie down here. We don't really have many pigs, and we don't have much pork chops left. And I think that's what's holding us up from making any more of these, if I'm not mistaken, is we need more of those. But we're also gonna have a separate episode dedicated to that and getting a mob duplicator up and going. You're gonna be annoying, aren't you? Anywho's, so you might have already been able to pick up on it, but we did modify our mob farm here. As you can see, it's now a 3x3, and it houses slimes. Yes, that is right. I have changed it, so now it is going to just be farming slimes, which is awesome. And as you can see, we're slowly but surely building up a backlog of slime balls. But my magnet is a little bit too powerful right here, so let's get out of here. Let's get out of here before I pick up way too much stuff. That's the one thing. Our magnet is amazing because it picks up from a distance of 11 blocks. 11 block radius, I should say. But it's a little bit powerful. Let's actually use the elevator. I put this elevator in here, and then I ultimately hardly ever use it because I have flight. So I end up just flying up and down this to get to where I need to. But anyway, okay, so that kind of catches you up on the things we did on stream for the most part. There's one big thing that we have done that is what I want to focus on today. And the reason I want to focus on it is because it was a little bit confusing. I should walk more. I don't know why I fly all over the place. I'm always in such a hurry. I gotta step back, stop and smell the roses once in a while. Let's take our nice create systems here to get to where we want to go. So you guys recall, we got our mechanism thermal evaporation chamber up and going right here from the last few episodes where we've been doing ore duplication. So that's here. We have Trunks over here. He's from a few streams ago. He is from Alex's Mobs. I do want to actually note really quick, there has been an update to the pack. I think it's running on like 1.5.5 now, and I'm on 0.4. But they have removed in the more recent updates Alex's mobs, which is a little bit of a bummer. I was actually super excited. I had some really good ideas to do around it. But they have since removed it. I guess it was causing some issues, a little bit glitchy and whatnot. So, but obviously I haven't updated to that version yet. But I'm going to keep an eye out for it. They say the next version is going to have even more mods added to it. So I'm super excited to see what is to come down the line. I'm having a lot of fun with this pack. But anyway, beside the point. So what we want to do is over here. And you know what? I probably should actually sleep through the night. This is how it always goes. I always am ready to start talking on what I want to talk on. And then it's nighttime. And then you guys can see what I'm looking at, but hardly see it. So... Alright, so as you can see, we've started getting the outline of a continuation of our walkway here over the water, which is really cool. A nice little bridge, taking a little bit of design aesthetics from our main gates into the kingdom there that we have. And I can even fly out and show you guys. Obviously, it's not done yet. We need to spend a little bit more time on it. This was kind of towards the end of the stream that we had. But it's all just stationary. There's no moving components to it, but... it's coming along. It does need some more stuff done to it. I might actually add some stuff along here and build it out. Like, it's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. So, because we do want to extend out this way because we do have this setup over here, which is from Environmental Tech, which should, once we get to a good tier of it, allow us to be able to passively create different resources along the same lines of getting quartz and things like that. But what we're going to want to do is, first and foremost, we are going to want to break our multi-block here. Is he going to do it? Oh, it's not going to do it because I have stuff on it. We're going to tear this down. You're getting a little glimpse of what it's going to look like once it's all said and done, but I want to walk you through this because we ran into some interesting situations getting this up and going on stream. Yeah, that's all I had to do there was break all of that. I'm going to leave this here for the time being. Actually, no, I'll bring this up too. And then what I also need is this bad boy. Throw it down. And then we are, I guess I'll leave both of those. Those are fine. So as you can see, we have a nice little area sanctioned out for our environmental craft. Now, we're only putting one up currently. You can have tons and tons of these. I recommend starting with maybe like one or two and then just building out from there. Hello, Mr. Creeper. Goodbye, Mr. Creeper. We definitely got a creeper head from that. That's kind of cool. And we'll just get rid of some of that junk. And gunpowder, something we definitely needed. So, clean slate here. So, environmental tech. That's going to be the whole idea behind this episode. And the reasoning, again, like I alluded to earlier on, is because we started getting into it in the stream. Now, the last time that I played with environmental tech was in 1.1.2, I think, right? 1.12 of Minecraft? Yeah, 1.12 of Minecraft. In Ocean Outlast Expert. So those of you who have been keeping up with the channel recall that. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's not too hard to do. There was actually some instructions within the game to kind of help guide you and visualize what you needed to get everything up and going for environmental tech. Now, with 1.16, they have completely revamped environmental tech. And it took us quite some time and a lot of help with the community to get this up and going. There's also not a lot of documentation out on the interwebs around this. You can find a couple videos, but a lot of the documentation, a lot of the written documentation is for the 1.12 version, the old version. So we're going to run through this. Hopefully this helps some of you guys out there out. It's not going to be an all-encompassing review. It's going to be to get the first tier up and going. After that, it's just going to take us some time to actually get to the second tier, third tier, so on and so forth. And I'll explain a little bit more as we get into it. So, first and foremost, let's bring up environmental tech here, if I could spell. So environmental tech, for those of you who have used it before, I'm sure some of the materials look very similar. You have your litherite crystals, and then you have your rhodium crystals, and then obviously moving up through the tiers. Now, there are some new ones as well, like nanorite crystals, which I do not recall being in the last version. There's also some new blocks down here as well. Now, in the previous versions, they had different types of void ore miners. That's what you're going for, void miners, I should say. They had the ore one, they had the resource one, they had, I'm trying to think, there was another one as well, but they would mine different things, or void mine them. Basically, you would point it at bedrock, or in our case, it actually works pointing it up towards the sky, And just providing it power would produce a certain amount of resources based on the power you provide it per tick and the tier that you're on. So it's a great way to passively generate resources. It's not mining out of the ground below you. It's just generating them out of the universe, basically. It's weird. So anywho, let's get into making this. I've kind of talked on it a little bit. I highly recommend getting one up and going. So if you are getting into it, the first thing you're going to want to get up and going is the Litherite Void Miner CCU here. And this is the tier 1. This is pretty straightforward to make. You do need a litherite crystals, which you can just make with ender pearls, emeralds, and quartz. Again, the quartz coming into play here, so you're definitely going to want to have some quartz. Also, emeralds here. Again, good to have a good amount on hand. I would highly recommend going for this one to get 8 of them at a time, because you get more bang for your buck on emeralds. Otherwise, you are going to be using a bunch of emeralds to get there. So definitely try to do this one where you can. I also recommend getting a lot of these set up in your refined storage system as well, because if you have the pattern set up, it makes it super easy to craft. The other thing you're going to need are some structural panels. You're also going to need a laser core, a laser diode, and then a block of diamond. These are all pretty straightforward here. Again, these structural panels or structure panels, I highly recommend getting in your refined storage system. Patterns makes it easier. Same with these additional components of these different plates. There's a couple different plates that you need to make. Get the patterns up and going. It just makes it so much easier. The obsidian ones, and then there's also redstone ones, which take the obsidian ones. It just makes it really, really easy to get going. So this is the first thing you need. And you can actually hold shift over it to get more info. So this will actually tell you what all you need. So you need 4 input-output block frames, or IO frames, obviously, that equal tier 1. Input-output blocks or frames. So structural frames are input-output blocks. I'll show you here in a second. Tier 1, because that's what we're working with here. You need 18 structural panels. You need 2 of those laser cores that I showed you. 20 frames, again, equaling the tier of the miner that we're going with. 2 modifiers and 1 laser lens holder. Now, it's a lot of talking. A lot of things. So what I'm going to show you guys is pretty much everything you need is right here in our inventory. Actually, I can get rid of some of the stuff that we don't need on us that our void miner's been going with. So here's your miner itself. You're going to want some structural panels. You're going to want at least 1 input output. And then you want 1 item output. You need 1 laser lens holder. You're going to need 20 of these structure frames for the tier that you're on. And then 2 of these laser cores. So this is pretty much all you need. And then in addition to that, you're probably going to want a couple extra panels to fill in some spaces. And then you're also going to want some null modifiers. Now we have frequency modifiers, but you're going to want null modifiers if you don't have the materials to bump up to additional ones. And I'll show you that in just a second here. So why don't we just get going? I'll get building. It's one of those things. It's somewhat easy to talk through, but not entirely. It's a little bit more easy to see, especially because myself, I'm a very visual person when I'm trying to learn how to do different things. So I love to see when someone actually gets it up and going compared to them just talking through it all the time. So like I said earlier, for us, I'm putting mine upside down. You can actually do this. Typically what they will have you do is place it so it's facing down towards the ground. But this way is pretty cool because then your beam, as you guys saw before, goes up into the sky. This was a recommendation from someone in the community, so I highly recommend doing it yourself if you want to see that beam. If you don't, then have it facing down towards bedrock, and then you don't have to worry about it. You can also turn that beam off if you wanted to, but that's a whole different thing. We're not going to worry about it right now. So when we open the UI of the Litherite Void Miner here, we have a couple different things, and it's not labeled very well. I'm not going to lie. It's not labeled at all. I mean, you have a bar here. Hovering over it doesn't show anything. There's a random box here. Doesn't tell you what you need there. You have a tick cost, but it's set at 0. So what are you supposed to do? Well, you also have an auto utility over here. Now, those of you who have played with environmental tech before, recall there was a like a digital interface that you could build and utilize to help auto build a lot of the miners. Well, now they've integrated into the miner itself, so you don't have to build that additional item. There's also no book or guide within the game to help you with this. Again, that's why I wanted to kind of walk through and try to help some of you maybe get up and going with it. Anywho, so what we had used is break multi-block. That's what we had clicked on to actually tear ours down, which is very convenient. You also have build, and then you also have clear and build multi-block. So this is more so like if you were taking it down and you were building a higher tier. I think that's more so what that one's used for. But this is the one that we are going to want to use. Now, once you have all the components you need, you can just come in here and hit the build. Even if you have more than what you need, you can hit the build multi-block and it should get it up and going for you automatically. So just like so, it is all good to go. Now, I do want to make note. I want to show you guys what will happen if we didn't have all these ones on the side here. So if you didn't have any of the input outputs for power, for items, or for the null modifiers, this is how it is going to, by default, look set up. So I'm going to try to get a decent view here for you guys at home who are trying to follow along with it. So as you can see, right in here, you have a laser core under it, I believe, right? And then the laser lens holder, and then another laser core above it. That's your main tier. Then you have the litherite structure frames all around it, kind of tearing off down like a pyramid shape. And then from the top, this is what it looks like here. So pretty straightforward. You have your structure ones on the outside and then the panels on the inside. And I actually put this one wrong. Hang on a second. This one actually goes right here, just like so. Okay, so this is how it will look. Now let's sleep through the night real quick. And then we'll continue on with all these additional components that we have. Now, realistically, you should have at least one of these on you when you're building it, but it will build it without you having these things on you at the time, which is really nice. So if you don't have those things on you at the time, again, this is how it's going to build it for you. These two open slots right here are for your modifiers. Now, when you start off, realistically, you'll probably just do the null modifier right here. It's very easy. You just need a structure panel, some glass, and iron. These are the easiest to make. Now, if you did have resources for it, you could bump up to the next tier of different modifiers. Now, for us, I went with the frequency ones because I believe it helps boost the it bumps up the energy cost in general, but then it also bumps up the frequency multiplier, so you have a faster chance of getting output from your void ore miner, or from your void miner, I should say. I shouldn't say ore miner because it's just a void miner now. So we're going to put our modifiers in here. Again, that's where your modifiers go. Whichever ones you choose, you have to have both of those blocks filled in with a modifier. Now moving right along, we have our input output for our power, well, our input for our power and our input output for items. Now for items, it's pretty straightforward. Just put it on it wherever you would want items to come in and out of. It's pretty easy. So I'm just placing it right here. It goes on one of these corners. You have these 4 corners that won't be filled in if you don't have these in your inventory. Now you don't have to fill out the other ones if you don't want to. So like for example, we could put in the input here, just one of them. And then for us, I'm just using an ender gate, but you could power it however you want to. We could throw this down on here. We could come down here, and as you can see, it's got a little bit of power in it. And I think it will actually work if I'm not... Actually, I think we have to have our actual output chest set up as well. So for that, we have our input out, or our output, not our input output. I'm getting it wrong every single time. But our item output up here. So all we got to do is I'm throwing on a elite logistical transporter. I recommend putting on whatever pipe you want to use for it, or you could even have it pump right into your refined storage system or whatever you're using. But for the time being, it's not producing a whole heck of a lot of stuff, so I just have it go right into a chest for the time, just because it makes it super easy to do. Then all we have to do is change this to be pulling out of there. And we can come down here and check. I think we actually have to fill in these outside ones if we want to continue on. I don't know if we need structure ones or these ones. Let's see here. I think we can do these, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. So if you want to have it set up with 1 power input, 1 item output, and nothing else on the corners, you just fill them in with the structure frames like we did here. If we go back down to the GUI, like I said, this starts filling up. This is your power setup here. Holy smokes. Okay. I was not expecting an attack by illagers. I mean, it's not really much of a challenge. Pretty easy to take those guys out. Oh my gosh, we got so many crossbows there. Anywho, yeah, quick pause for illager fight. Not expecting that, but we're way overpowered anyway, so. But yeah, that is how you can have it set up. We are actually going to need another one of these. I think I put our thing away, our ender gate away, so let's grab another one here. I'm just going with hardened ones. You could go with whatever one you want to, but as you can see, these base ones are only 1,000 RF per tick. The other thing with these two I should mention is that there's different tiers, but there's different tiers within the same recipe. So if you click on it, then it shows you all the different recipes to make them, but they're all under the same one. Like if we were to look, I believe if we were to look at the environmental tech, and we look at the input, there's only one block for it. Yeah, there's only one block for it. So it doesn't show all the different tiers, but you click on it and then you can click through to show the different tiers of the input output. Same for the item one as well, I believe. And what you want is the green one. That goes by naming for the different levels, but you can also go by colors. Green is going to be your first one, and then the Erodium purple is going to be your second one. Anywho. So, in order, and yeah, and then you can upgrade, but you upgrade an assembler. Okay, never mind. Regardless, let's keep moving on here. So, if you want to bump up your power, though, what you can do is take out these corner ones and put more energy inputs over here. And again, I just put these on here. You could use whatever input you want to. And if we come down here, it's not going to show anything different, but the power is still filled up. Cool beans. I've done a lot of talking, right? We finally have it up and going to a point where it should be working, right? Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's not really a void ore miner or a void resource miner just yet. It's just a void miner. So what we need to do, which is not very well explained at all, is we have to define what kind of miner we want this to be. Now, in order to do that, you need to get up and going a flash memory. This flash memory will allow you to define what program you want to have on your miner. Now for this, pretty straightforward to do. You are going to need some redstone repeaters. You're also going to need a volatile memory chip from environmental core. It's environmental core now. Sorry, I keep saying environmental tech. I'll probably label it as environmental core in the title of the video. But you're going to need some repeaters here and then litherite crystals, which I already showed you guys how to do all of that for. But you need one of these, and you need to be able to program it. Now, it doesn't really tell you how you program it. So that's where then the memory programmer comes into play. I guess it's kind of intuitive. Once you hear the name of it, you would take your memory chip and put it in a memory programmer. But if you really had no idea and you were going off the previous version of environmental tech, you wouldn't really know this right away. So the memory programmer is not too hard to get up and going. There we go. So all you need are some obsidian plates, structure panel, 2 of these volatile memory chips, and then a CPU, which is again not too shabby. A little bit of redstone there in those comparators. But you get this up and going. It does need power, so make sure you power it. As you see, this one is actually labeled with energy storage, unlike the miner itself. And then you can go through here and choose different types of miners. Now for us, on ours, we have a crystal miner. I would highly recommend starting with this one. The crystal miner will allow you to produce all of the crystals that are utilized for environmental core now. So then you can bump up to the next tier more quickly. But to quickly go through, you have your ore ones, you have your botanic ones, which will be like trees, leaves, things like that. Resources, which are going to be blocks like dirt, sand, cobblestone, so on and so forth, normal stone. And then obviously your ore one is pretty self-explanatory. There's also multi-miners, which is very interesting. It kind of just gives you like the same options up here, but then it also throws in the multi-miner right there, which will kind of do a broad spectrum pull of everything. Now, like I said, for us, we want to do our crystal miner right here. So we can throw this in here. We just select crystal. And for you guys, it won't have a program by default. But once you select what you want, it'll automatically then flash it to the flash memory over on this GUI over here. And then what you can do is you can actually take this, throw it in here, give it a hot second to warm up, and then it'll show you what the tick cost is. So for us, it's 2,257. So we should be perfectly fine since we have 3 of our inputs here. This should be inputting about 3,000 RF per tick, which is definitely more than what is being utilized from this specific one. Now, obviously we don't have anything in here. There's also a little bit of textural glitches here with the beam coming up and our clouds showing through. We've had this with a few other mods as well. I don't know what it is, but it's okay. Now, the way that you can tell when you actually get something produced is the beam will flicker a little bit. You can see it flicker a teeny bit right here, but right there, it flashed. That means that it produced something, and right here we have a litherite crystal that was produced, which is pretty cool. So again, this is the main setup for it. Now, I'm going to jump into the last thing I want to talk on today, because it has been a very talkative episode, I feel like, which is the modifiers. Now, like I said, if you get the null ones to start with, that's great. But realistically, bumping up to the next tier of getting like a frequency modifier is really good, or whatever modifier you want to do. Now, in order to get some of these modifiers, you need to get another machine up and going, which is the assembler. And of course, Shiga raining. I don't think it's nighttime. Is it nighttime? I think it's daytime. All right, hang on. Let me sleep this night away or get rid of this rain. All right, it was actually nighttime, so didn't have to sleep through the day. Just had to do to sleep through the night there with our sleeping bag. But anywho, so we have it all set up. I wanted to talk on modifiers and the assembler itself. So the assembler is pretty straightforward to make. All you need are some of these obsidian plates, some pistons, a structural panel, flash memory, volatile memory, and a CPU. Not too bad, but again, if you have everything set up in your refined storage system, should be pretty straightforward to make up. Now, the assembler also does take power, so make sure you have it hooked into power. As you can see, we have our power set up right there. Now, moving on to the modifiers themselves. So if we want a frequency modifier here, as you see, you can actually, well, you can make it, I guess you can make it without the assembler, possibly? Interesting. I didn't see this before. I just assumed that we had to go straight to the assembler to make this. But it's showing it right here. Now I'm kind of curious. Can we do it? I'm gonna waste the resources on it. That's perfectly fine. We'll get one of those crafted up there. I think we have everything else we need. Let's get the modifier here. We want to do a frequency one. I need to get those crafted up. And let's see what else we need then. Null modifier. That should be pretty easy to make. Which I don't have a pattern for. That's fine. We'll get a null modifier just like so. And let's see. Can we make this up in our... Oh, you can. Okay. Well, there you go. I guess you don't even need the assembler for this one. For the first tier, you can just do it in your normal crafting table. I feel like this isn't supposed to be right. I'm guessing there's probably an update that'll come that'll fix this, because then it kind of gets rid of the use of the assembler in general. But we're not going to do that because obviously I don't need one. But let's look at the other one here for frequency, because obviously you can move up through the tiers. It looks like, honestly, you don't have to use... Yeah, you don't have to use any of the assemblers. You don't have to use the assembler for any of this. But for future looking, if it does happen to change and no longer shows in JEI here, you guys know, just go to the assembler and do it. It's going to be very, very similar. It's very straightforward on how to do it. Just make sure it has some power. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much going to do it. As you can see, we're building up a good amount of resources here. Now, in order to get to the next tier, which we'll probably do another episode on, you have to build up a lot of the erodium crystals. That's why I suggest starting with the crystal modifier, the crystal flash, crystal program, I should say, on the flash memory to start off with. Because in order to get to the next tier, you do need this erodium. And that's what our ultimate goal is to work up through the different tiers. There are several different ones. You start at the bottom one, and you can go all the way up to a tier 8, which is crazy. And these things also do get much bigger than this little boy right here. So that's why I put it over here to hopefully give us enough space, and we could always shift it as we need to, left or right, because I obviously want to tear it down and use some of the components as you're upgrading to the next tiers. But make sure you have enough space for it. So you can do some expansion. You can also get multiples of these up and going too, like I mentioned earlier. Just keep in mind the amount of power consumption that you're going to have, as well as the amount of resources that you need to put into doing that, and then upgrading them down the line. Don't drain yourself dry on these bad boys, because they're really not that worth it right off the bat. They are amazing, but once they get to the higher tiers, that's really when they start to shine. But guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today. I feel like that was a whole whirlwind of an episode there of getting through things. And I know that we unfortunately didn't get to anything else, but I did want to kind of focus on this because we did spend a decent amount of time on it on the stream, trying to just figure it out. And I felt like it was a worthwhile investment to then try to transfer at least a little bit of that knowledge to you guys. I'm still no expert, but at least it's hopefully enough of a cliff note of the mod to get you guys up and going yourselves, for those of you who are having a little bit of a hard time with it. But anyways, we're gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. I appreciate it so very much. If you did enjoy this episode, definitely leave a like down below. Better yet, leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. If you got any other suggestions for environmental core, you feel free to leave them down there as well. We do stream over on Twitch, like I've been mentioning. Link in the description down below. We stream on Mondays and Fridays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, roughly around then. Maybe a little bit later, maybe a little bit earlier, just depends. But we also have down in the description a link to the Discord if you feel like joining in the community and actually keeping up to date on if those times change for our Twitch streams. I do try to announce it over there. I also announce when I go live if you don't want notifications on for Twitch. But guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it so very much, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take it easy.